people are infected with recency bias or normalcy bias. You look at the numbers, you look at the fundamentals, you look at the logic, you look at the history. In a world of probabilities, I would say that there is going to be a moment that will, as you said, catch many people off guard because they don't see what's coming straight at them, and you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for August 14th through August 21st, 2023, while supplies last. This week we feature Silver Buffalo Rounds from Bulmint in Bulgaria at just $2.50 over spot. The Bulmint Buffalo is a new take on the Silver Buffalo, with unmatched 4/9 fine purity. Bulmint pride themselves on artistry and design, and produce a fine silver round with dueling buffalo on one side and a portrait of a Native American chief on the other. These 4/9 fine rounds come 20 to a tube and 400 to a Bulmint exclusive master box. They are available at just $2.50 over spot and are IRA eligible. If you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always grateful for this wildly popular returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals. He joins us this Tuesday for a weekly market update, and today is August 15th, 2023. Andy, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Great to be here again, done again, as always. Thanks for having me.
Our viewers really appreciated you joining us for a live stream. I know you're often eager to say yes when we ask you for that, so we'll do it again sometime soon with your permission. Today I have a question for you that arises from several discussions that I've had with acquaintances who are not aware that their existing retirement, not just their upcoming planned future hopeful retirement, but their existing retirements are at risk in the current regime. And a lot of people, I'm afraid, are going to be hurt by this if we don't warn them what's coming. It's something that our Reluctant Preppers channel has been trying to caution people about since 2013. We've never been closer to a major upset. One of the comments, there's several comments that struck me. One was, why would I be interested in any investments? I'm already retired. I've already made it. I've already reached my retirement. Therefore, I'm not concerned about that anymore. And it seems to me that might be a very commonly and widely held position. And I'm afraid it's unfortunately fraught with peril for people who are in that mindset. If they think that, well, my certified financial planner is going to take care of me. They've always managed me well in the past. For the last 40 years, they got me so far to retirement, so I trust them to take me through retirement as well. And it seems to me, just pounding on my forehead, are several risks that are looming to people's existing retirements, let alone their prospective retirements. And I thought maybe you could help walk us through the ones that are closest to top of mind for you, and I'll introduce any that are on my mind as well.
Yeah, well, there's the old saying, you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming. And a lot of people, maybe even those that are well-read, are just reading the wrong things. But let's look at a couple of market gurus and look at what they're doing right now. Warren Buffett, as an example, has more cash stored on the sidelines than ever before. His Berkshire Hathaway has, between cash and short-term treasuries, a very short-term duration, is almost $148 billion sitting on the sideline. And he's known as the most classic value investor that there is. So he is anticipating greater value ahead. And it is my belief that if he thought there was such great value in this market, he would have all of that money deployed rather than being in short-term treasuries. And maybe equally as interesting, Michael Burry, the gentleman who called the subprime crisis, who had the book written and the movie made after him, The Big Short, just shorted the market with 93% of his entire hedge fund, of $1.6 billion, shorting the market. So you have some very, very big players on opposite ends of the spectrum, a legendary speculator and a legendary value investor. Both of them are sitting on the sidelines in the respect of in cash or shorting what would be, and I guess it's not right to call Michael Burry on the sidelines. He's taking a more aggressive stance and actually shorting this market. And, you could also talk about this large, still inverted yield curve. And what the inverted yield curve is basically saying to guys like Warren Buffett, who have loaded up on short-term treasuries, is that the Fed, when things get really tight, will pivot and lower rates. And when rates lower, that means all of the the $147 billion in short-term treasuries that Buffett has will instantly go up in value as rates fall, and those bond prices in circulation go up commensurate. And so he'll be flush with cash, with the ability to come in and take advantage of whatever opportunities arise in the environment that is coming. And when you see a guy like him on the sidelines, I find it to be very, very ominous, at least in terms of what we could expect to see in the broader markets. And you look at it in terms of real estate holdings as well. The 30-year mortgage just hit 7.2%. That's just below its October 2022 high of 7.4%, or just under. It hasn't been this high really since 2000, 23 years ago. And we're also coming from a point where the values of the properties that people own have been blown sky high through a decade plus of suppressed interest rates and easy money. I would say the same thing about all the valuations that people are relying on to cushion their retirement. And when these valuations correct to meet a higher interest rate environment, to find equilibrium, they may fall a lot further than people think. And, you put it all together on top of, as we talked about last week, a growing mountain of debt, where just since the debt ceiling increase, the government has added over $1.8 trillion in debt, most of it used to reliquify the Treasury's account that had been squandered. And we did that in just over 8 weeks. It took the government 209 years to create the first 1.8 trillion. And looking at it on even a bigger lens, you go back to the end of 2019, before the pandemic, and we had $22.7 trillion debt at the end of fiscal year 2019. And here we are today, 32.7. That's 50% greater in just a few years. The acceleration of this debt and the rise of interest rates is really a big problem. And then you throw into the mix, Fitch here today has said they're going to downgrade some more banks, including maybe even some of the big boys like JP Morgan. And when you see a banking industry that is being downgraded, a banking industry that, when you look at the regional banks holding 70% of all the commercial real estate loans and leases, and between now and the end of 2024, you have like a 1.6 trillion in these loans and leases that need to be reset. So as you see redemptions coming in with these banks, or problems with these banks, and the banks are forced to sell their longer term maturity bonds, that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They sell them and those bond prices fall, but the yield goes higher as a result to attract more business or more interest in those bonds. And so it puts more and more and more pressure on the unrealized losses of these banks until, for whatever reason, they're forced to redeem depositors' requests for redemption, and they have to sell these bonds that are increasing in their loss profile. And that's why you still see such a huge amount of money in this new overnight, or this new short-term bank lending program. The bottom line is that for people to think that all is okay, we are in the height of instability, of change, of risk. And I think anyone who would think that they've already reached their retirement and they're okay, certainly they're not thinking about their legacy. And if they are only thinking in terms of short term, look, things seem to happen on a dime. And when you talk about these banks that can overnight be bailed in, there's a lot to think about nowadays. And status quo, even the best laid plans done, again, they need to be reevaluated from time to time. And in my 33-year career, I have never seen a more important time to reevaluate where you are personally on this crazy journey to retirement.
It's like you were walking us through kind of the everything bubble, the stocks, bonds, real estate, and when everything's in a bubble, there's nowhere to hide once that bubble starts imploding. Just last night, we posted the interview we did yesterday with Alistair MacLeod, the former bank director, who talked to us about what he called the beginning of the great unwind, which exactly I think is what you're describing. And he said, and he described the near panic that sets in, even in bankers, when they realize that on their balance sheet that they've got to turn into some of their liabilities, which are going to go toxic on them. They've got to sell them while there's still a bid. And that can be, as you mentioned, a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's this death spiral as more and more individuals and institutions realize that they've got to get to liquidity before they get wiped out. And one thing we didn't touch on here was retirement plans, pension plans. There's private pension plans, state and local, and all kinds of different sizes of pension plans that have all built their guaranteed benefit promises to their owners based on assumptions about yield that they can no longer find in the current environment. Their bond portfolios are looking horrible. And the other thing is, even when people try to run away from everything that you just mentioned, the flight to cash usually means to a large cash balance in a bank account. And then you're right back to vulnerability to the banks for all kinds of issues, including bail-ins potential.
Well, think about it, Dunning. Why the hell would anyone keep their money in the banks? I mean, how many times should we say this? The average yield right now on a savings account in the United States is still under 0.5%. It's like 45 basis points you're getting on an average yield in a savings account here in the U.S. right now. Why would you keep it there when you can move it to a money market account at a too-big-to-fail bank, supposedly, earning 5% with daily liquidity? You wouldn't. Or go directly to treasurydirect.gov and buy short-term treasuries directly from the government, where you sidestep all of the systemic risk. You're getting paid 10 times what you're getting in a savings account and eliminating all the risk. I mean, it's insane that these banks are even really as solvent as they are. And the indictment to the whole banking system is seeing that it's not Fitch saying that Bank of America and JP Morgan could be downgraded. It's that you're seeing huge redemptions or transfers out of the commercial banks by the big money going directly to the Treasury and relying upon the risk of the U.S. government versus the systemic nature of the banking industry. They're going right to the Treasury. They're getting higher yield than you can even get in the money market accounts directly from the Treasury at treasurydirect.gov. And in doing so, they are eliminating the risk of the banking sector. Here again, a self-fulfilling prophecy where it continues. The exodus chasing yield is the poison pill to the banks. The more deposits they lose, they get closer and closer to that point where they have to, as you say, sell their toxic assets, which put Silicon Valley Bank out of business in 36 hours. So, this is a deal that we haven't seen the end of yet. And you and I have said one phrase quite a bit over our last few talks, and that is recency bias or normalcy bias. People are infected with recency bias or normalcy bias, and that's the wrong thing to do, especially when you're 80 plus years old, thinking about playing shuffleboard and golf and retiring on your assets that, have been blown sky high due to suppressed interest rates and easy money. It's make-believe. It's Alice in Wonderland. And when you find an environment where those assets correct in terms of proper valuation, where price discovery is something that isn't such a mystery, then these retirees are going to be bagging groceries again and wishing that they would have not risked their retirement, really, to speculation in what amounts to maybe the most overvalued, over-leveraged, unstable, ultimately in terms of its fundamentals, set of traditional markets that I've ever seen in my career. So, yeah, it's a question that you'll get asked, but most people are incapable of hearing. And even if you tell them, they'll think, you're just a doom and gloomer, you sell gold. Well, unfortunately, people have this opinion that capitalism being someone who sells gold for a living, and honesty and good intentions have to be mutually, exclusive of one another. And yeah, you can be a great gold salesman, but your intentions are pure and your motivation is sound and logical. And, I would just simply say to you that most people, unfortunately, will not understand what you're saying until they see it with their own eyes. And by then, it's too late. So those who listen to you that reluctantly prepared, you're doing them a favor. And you look at the numbers, you look at the fundamentals, you look at the logic, you look at the history. In a world of probabilities, I would say that there is going to be a moment that will, as you said, catch many people off guard because they don't see what's coming straight at them. And you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming.
One more one we didn't touch on was the flight to cash. The ultimate in most people's mind is physical paper cash. In the U.S., that means $100 bills, $20 bills, how high you can stack them under your mattress or whatever. What I think most people, the vast majority of people, don't realize is that even that is not out of the system. That's inside the system in the sense that those are not assets. Those have no intrinsic value. And in fact, the purchasing power of those is getting sucked right out of them by the theft that's coined the inflation target of the Fed, which really should be the theft target, according to a couple of the guests that we've had on. Any comments from your standpoint, besides some emergency liquidity, which is always from a preparedness standpoint? Absolutely. Have some food on hand, have some water on hand, have some cash on hand. Absolutely. But beyond that, as far as storing your nest egg in paper cash, being a way to escape what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that it helps you escape a little bit is the counterparty risk. And when you're getting paid next to nothing in return, what is the opportunity cost of having that cash rather than at the bank? But look, when you talk about the Fed's mandated target of 2%, I never understood that. I mean, why have 2% inflation? How about negative 2%? The lower the level of inflation, the higher the standard of living. And it would be like Elon Musk standing on the stage saying that it's the goal of Tesla and SpaceX to lose 2% per year. Isn't that great? No, that it's stupid. But the reality of it is that 2% mandate, they never hit it. And because the metrics by which they gauge that 2%, even when inflation was supposedly 2%, was probably much higher, according to John Williams, because they strip out those things that would betray or shine a light upon their faulty logic and their faulty set of measurements. And so 2% every single year begins to erode considerably. But when you realize that inflation is 2, 3, 4, 5 times that and has been for quite some time, the cash that you keep at home should be used for nothing other than emergencies and or, you need cash to go do something. But pulling out $100,000 in cash has its own set of risks. And you look at a country like Australia, who's moving completely cashless. And how far away are we from a situation like that? Certainly with Fed now being introduced and ultimately a CBDC and talks of a cashless society, central bank digital currencies, certainly we're beginning to see cash used less and less and less and less. I don't know that that's really the option. I do think people should have cash at home, some in small bills, not hundreds, but not 50s, but 20s, 10s, and 5s. But how practical is it to keep all of that money at home? And then when you need to send a wire or a check, you have to go deposit the money back in. That's probably not the answer. What the answer is to do the best you can to mitigate your exposure to a system that is fracturing and that the rating agencies are downgrading and are reluctant to do it because of the political aspect of it, where Janet Yellen chastises Fitch for downgrading the U.S. debt. And, quite frankly, they should have been applauded, as should have Moody's. And, one of the things that caught my attention was the senior analyst at Fitch who said part of the reasoning for downgrading wasn't just the debt, but was also the governance, the way that things are being done, where since 2019, our national debt has doubled from 22 to 32, nearly doubled. And, that's 50% greater from that period of time, 22 to 32, pretty damn close. And so you're talking about a situation that is becoming rapidly unattainable. And the byproduct of this will be the banks that get caught in the storm or in this cascade of higher interest rates and the consequences we find associated with that. But don't think that the pension funds and the insurance companies are immune to this. Where do they invest their money? On these sets of criteria where, everything has been thrown upside down. There's nearly, I think, a $1.8 or $9 trillion pension shortfall in this country. So, look, this is not a situation where people should just rest on their laurels thinking that it's always been okay and this time it will be too. Maybe it will. Maybe they're able to pull a rabbit out of the collective hat. But for my money, no, I think it's time for critical thinking and thinking outside the box at that.
Yeah, that's the other thing that a lot of people have been lulled into sleepwalking about, is thinking that whatever their pension plan is somehow going to take care of them, whether that a significant element of that is Social Security. Nope. You read carefully what's being written by the officials about Social Security, and they're saying they're going to have, within like 13 years, you have to start curtailing the amount of payments, and they're inflating the currency to reduce the value, the purchasing power of the payments, and the cost of living adjustments based on Cook numbers not keeping up with the real purchasing power. So no matter how you look at it, and then the other actual pension plans that are paying out these fixed benefits to people, not going to be able to stay above water either, with their bond portfolios going upside down, et cetera. So a lot of the hope and faith that a lot of people have placed, and perhaps with some well-intended guidance, or perhaps also with some cowardly theft of the Social Security Trust Fund by Congress, et cetera, along the way, has led up to exposure of a vast majority of retirees to be at financial peril going forward. And I don't think they're being told about this.
Of course not. And, Reuters came out and said that by 2030, I think that, all in all, Social Security will be all but insolvent. Well, I mean, it already is if it's $77 trillion underfunded, filled with IOUs. Remember, 1 trillion seconds ago, I always say 31,688 years ago. I mean, how do you ever fund Social Security, which has been pillaged? This is part of the reason why you've been hearing me kind of go out on a limb lately and ask the question, how much of this was intended? How much of this do they want to blow up? Because the majority of the debt that is owed by the United States is to the American public. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and government military pensions, which represent a mountain, $130+ trillion of 4 times the national debt. And, if you blow it up and issue a central bank digital currency, it's a lot easier. Lael Brainerd, the modern monetary theorist, number 2 advisor to the presidency, a lot easier to go full modern monetary theory and make everyone whole if they take the new central bank digital currency after everything blows up. I'm not saying that's going to happen or that's the playbook. It's just there's a lot of that makes sense to me. All I can simply tell you is that if you are reliant upon those types of entitlements, like Social Security, to fund your retirement, I have a sinking feeling that, it's not going to be a good experience for the majority of the people in this country who are already not in retirement. It's going to, we'll be lucky at all if it's there. And then if it is, what is the value of the dollars you're being paid with? So this is all real, and you don't have to be a gold salesman or a doom and gloomer to say this. Google it. Go to Reuters. You'll see it yourself. Google the 2022 United States balance sheet, and you'll find that it says we have $155 trillion in debt, backed by $5 trillion in assets, of which 40% is student debt. So, I mean, we are woefully underfunded by debt to GDP standards. We're a banana republic. But, banana republics jail or attempt to jail their political adversaries. So we're not, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, maybe. Forget that. Anyways, the bottom line is that things are changing. And if you don't sense it and see it and feel it and think that everything will be okay just by embracing what always has worked, well, then I think that's a gamble that I personally wouldn't be willing to take or advise my loved ones to take.
I would encourage all of our viewers to forward this, if you would, as widely as possible, especially to perhaps friends, family members, coworkers, neighbors who might be open to a different source of information than what they've been receiving. And I think it'd be more helpful, more realistic, and more well-grounded information that could help them be better prepared for what's coming. As part of that, for our viewers, Andy, you often try to come up with a weekly special to help make getting out of the system and getting even out of paper dollars that are being inflated towards nothing more affordable. Can you let us know what's available this week?
Yeah, keeping in the spirit of what we've done literally for the last 3 years because of its value, we're sticking with silver. And the same special we had last week, the brand new 4.9 fine, 9.999 purity Bulmint rounds, silver rounds, Bulmint Buffalo silver rounds come in boxes of 400, tubes of 20. They're phenomenal. They're IRA eligible. But, let's talk about for one moment, on top of everything we've ever talked about silver, and I don't have to rehash the fundamentals, what I will tell you is that something caught my eye yesterday that you see once in a blue moon at that. And that is the most well-funded, well-informed, sophisticated investors here in the United States have hoodwinked the dumb money managers to go short silver. What does that mean? That means the most well-funded, well-informed, sophisticated investors pushed the price down. The money managers went short, allowing the commercial banks to cover those shorts. And as of yesterday, the commercial banks are net long in silver futures. They're positioned to watch the price really rise. And last time I looked, a week ago Friday, there were still 95,000 September contracts still open. Now that's pared down a lot, I'm sure. I haven't looked at it in a few days, but that represented 474 million ounces of silver. That's 40,000 more contracts, or 200 million ounces of silver than there were bars in the exchange backing those contracts. Now, chances are most of those will roll over to December, and you're not going to see, more contracts request delivery than there are bars backing it. But that's how close we are to seeing something like that happen. And when we see the commercial banks, I can't remember the last time they were actually net long in silver. On top of what Ted Butler will tell you is a massive shortfall in wholesale silver bars when you look at the depletion from the LBMA and from COMEX. I believe that. And this is part of the reason why I've talked about the biggest money in the world draining COMEX and the LBMA and the Shanghai Gold Exchange and the ETFs of all the investable bars, quietly, methodically, slowly using the Western suppressed price to run cover for it. And now they've hoodwinked the money managers at the worst time into going net short. So it's a big deal. The commercial banks are almost always on the right side of this, JP, Goldman, Citi, and they're net long. So for those of you that have held on over the last few weeks as the price of silver has come back, to me, that was classic short covering. They have done that. Silver is massively oversold technically. And now you see the commercials go long, which happens, never. And that to me is incredibly bullish. And when these big money managers, the hedge funds who are only in it for profit, have to cover those short positions, it becomes rocket fuel for a massively undervalued commodity that is in short supply on the wholesale side of the equation. So interesting times ahead for those of us who have held on through all of the ups and downs. One of these days, they're just going to let it run to the upside. But right now, the backdrop is set for much higher silver prices, and the commercial banks are poised to reap the benefits of that. To me, that gives me great optimism in terms of where the price will be heading into the fall.
Well, you guys have heard me say this before. I was asking you to please take advantage of our free newsletter. Rick Rule talks about Stansberry research saying that it takes 12 exposures to new information before people, on average, take action. So if you've heard me say it 11 times before, this is the 12th time. Just go to libertyandfinance.com, put in your name, your email address, click submit. You'll get one confirming email, and after that, you're in. You'll get one email in your inbox. Monday through Saturday each week. That's 6 a week with all of our newest interviews, including all those with Andy and our latest weekly specials. You won't miss a thing. That's libertyandfinance.com. Just put your name, email address, submit, and then confirm on the confirm email. Andy, it's always a treasure to have you here. Our viewers are extremely supportive and appreciate your authenticity and integrity that you bring to this, and we're here to help that happen for the good of all of our viewers, subscribers, and everyone that we can reach out to. So thanks for joining us, as always, on Liberty and Finance.
Always good to be here, my friend. It truly is. You're a class act, and wouldn't miss it. So look forward to picking up where we left off next week. If I'm not mistaken,
That'll be the day of the South Africa BRICS.
I was going to say that is 15. That's 22. So there'll be a lot to talk about next week. I don't expect fireworks to happen on the 22nd, but I do think that it is the beginning of a continuing trend that will open up the eyes to more and more people. Not just the people that's been listening to you and I for the last few years talking about this, but an acceleration of a trend that is unstoppable, a trend in motion. And so lots to talk about, and I suspect lots more to talk about as we head into the end of the year. The fall typically being the busiest time of the year as people from Europe come back from vacation. You could usually put a dot on Labor Day and say from that point forward, the metals market picks up momentum in many respects. So lots to focus on, lots to talk about, and I'll look forward to picking up where we left off. And as always, then again, you stay well, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, and once again, reminding people that what former bank director Alistair MacLeod describes as the great unwind, and that the BRICS nations already having awoken to that they need to get out of dependence on the dollar as a trade settlement currency, get out of dependence on the U.S. Treasuries as their store of funds and liquidity, and coming up with alternatives is part of that great unwind that's going to be accelerating. So, Andy, thanks for alerting us to that specifically as well, and we'll pick it up next week. Thanks.
Look forward to it, buddy. Take care.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we can let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Kaiser, my brother Elijah, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.